For 15 years, Welsh rock band People in Plains have been but a memory since disappearing before the release of their hotly anticipated third album. Their record label's been dead for almost a decade, and the Wikipedia article says they disbanded in 2013. Citation needed. I want to know, what happened to People in Plains? Good morning, everyone. Songwriters Gareth Jones and Peter Roberts first met in primary school, famously by one accidentally smashing a tennis ball into the other's face, according to an archived version of the band's MySpace profile. Their foray into songwriting was inspired by the album I Should Coco by the band Supergrass. I'd never even heard of Supergrass before, so I listened to the album, and it's alright. Just alright. Doesn't really do anything for me. I almost feel guilty over that. This album inspired one of my favorite bands, so I feel like I should have some innate reverence for it, you know? The duo were later joined by fellow like-minded pothead kids, Chris Blight and John Maloney, on bass and drums respectively. This is still straight from the MySpace. Their first iteration was called Robots in the Sky, which released only a single 7-inch before reforming as the band Tetra Splendor, signed to EMI for the group's first full-length release, Splendid Animation, in 2002. None of these releases are available on streaming, likely the result of the same corporate reshuffling that caused that iteration of the band to end, but the tracks have been kept alive on YouTube for your listening pleasure. In mid-2005, the band signed to Wind Up Records for their 2006 album, As Far as the Eye Can See, which they were able to record with producer Sam Williams, who had worked on the same Supergrass LP that caused them to form in the first place. They were also joined by an old school friend, Ian Russell, who took over keyboard duties so Gareth could focus on a more frontman-like role. This is when I first encountered the band, at the very start of my teenage years. I remember seeing TV commercials for the album and for the music video of their first single, If You Talk Too Much, My Head Will Explode, the title of which is also an effective email signature. The music video for If You Talk Too Much was directed by actor Joaquin Phoenix, which must be awesome for them nowadays. They get to tell people their debut hit had a video directed by the Joker. I imagine that lost a bit of its power after Joker 2, though. As Far as the Eye Can See was moderately successful, allowing the band to tour the world to wide acclaim. It was also around this time the band contributed the track Instantly Gratified to the overly advertised comedy film John Tucker Must Die. Anyone else remember that thing? I sure as hell do, because titular character John Tucker, his initials are JT, the same as my JT. So people got a lot of laughs assuming that's what my name was. Or they assumed I was a douchebag, like the movie character. I need you people to understand, that's not how names work. Later in my middle school years, that's my dramatic way of saying when I was in 8th grade, I got to go, hey, I know that song, when the track Light for the Deadvine was used in the Season 4 finale of House. Anyone else remember House? What was with that guy? Why'd he walk like that? In September of the same year, 2008, we were rewarded with the release of the band's second album, Beyond the Horizon, one of my favorite albums of all time. The lead single, Mayday Mayday, and following single, Last Man Standing, I remember both being pretty prominent in advertising around the time. Like, Last Man Standing was used in a Season 3 promotion for The Walking Dead, and also for an NFL pregame ad. Looking now, there are even fan music videos of The Walking Dead using the song. How cute. The following year, the group released the Gung Ho for Info EP, and it seemed like they had no intentions of slowing down. The release was digital only. Around this time, People in Plains posted on their MySpace that they had 8 songs recorded for their new album. They leave for a European tour supporting Biffy Clyro, and afterwards go silent. 20 months later, in August of 2011, producer Steve Osborne posted on his website that he was working on a forthcoming People in Plains album. This leads us to the end of the trail, where we began. In 2013, it was reported that the band had broken up. Citation needed. Then who reported it? I delved into the edit history of the Wikipedia page and found that previously, that line read that their breakup was announced during an episode of Kerrang! Radio in 2012. These episodes are not archived anywhere that I could find, and my email to Kerrang! Went unanswered. On the band's YouTube page, People in Plains UK, they've posted a couple holiday messages from the band, a few songs from their live album, and a handful of band vlogs from the era of 240p video 16 years ago. In the comments of one 9 years ago, user Hearth Arrow and Key commented, "We still listen to you. We still love you. We still wait you." Spread across the other videos, the sentiment is echoed and amplified. If art is the decoration of space, then music is the decoration of our passage through time, and when the accompaniment of so many of your lived hours goes missing, the loss can linger. There's a video of their South by Southwest Music Festival appearance in 2008, 17 years ago. Through all these videos, you get the sense that the band was a close-knit group of friends. The vlogs chronicle their adventures of touring the world and playing music with each other. For young men, is there a more potent or alluring dream? This also makes their disappearance more concerning to me. What event could be cataclysmic enough to dissolve their bond? This isn't the first time I've performed this search. Over the years, I've sorted through plenty of Google pages looking for any kind of interview or update about what happened to the group. I knew that Pete Roberts, alongside Ian Russell and John Maloney, had formed another band in the years following People in Plains' disappearance, so I started there with Guide Dog. As much as I love the creativity of these fellas, I do hate their trend for adopting names that are impossible to search for. Go ahead, search for People in Plains and tell me how long it takes you to tire of aviation. Guide Dog isn't any better. I couldn't find much about the band, but I sure know a lot about animals for the blind. One of the few relevant results was an episode of the Shoot the Shred podcast that Pete was featured on. However, this episode no longer seems to exist anywhere on the internet. In fact, the entire podcast no longer exists. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube links all lead to dead ends. In the YouTube search results, we do find a link to the Hot Butter podcast, with one of their uploads being Shred Pod promo. But their page doesn't lead to any fruitful discoveries. I left a comment just in case. The next result, a Face Mag article where Guide Dog debuted the first track of their second LP, which seemingly never released. They give a brief history of the band, which mentions People in Plains, and begins the next paragraph with, following the aborted third record on Wind Up, which is being recorded in Real World Studios, Bath. Okay, another crumb to follow. This article also confirms a suspicion I'd had before in my previous info excursions. Guide Dog released their record on Hi-Vis Records, of which there seems to be no trace or track online. This article confirms that Hi-Vis is Pete's own vanity label, hence why there weren't many sources to follow. The article also mentions long-term collaborator Dan Austin worked on the Guide Dog LP. He is mentioned to work at 140 Decibel Studios, where Steve Osborne works his magic. Remember, Steve's who is at the helm of People in Plains 3, so I looked more into Steve and his website instead. No crumb there. Guide Dog's Instagram page is still up, so I sent a message, because why not? All the links to the advertised IamTheGuideDog.com are dead ends, simply leading to Wix website placeholders. Even the Wayback Machine is no use here. But what happened to the other members? Mainly Gareth Jones, the frontman. I'm not the only one wondering, as in an older Reddit thread asking about him, commenter only Pomelo4651 comments, I can confirm he's happy and well, living in Wales. He is a bespoke carpenter and has nothing to do with any legal issues. That last part's a little curious, right? It is with a confused and heavy heart I have to announce that shortly after being released from prison in October of 2014, Gareth Jones beat a homeless musician to death and stole his wallet. In cold blood, he struck down a vulnerable man for a paltry $50. Thankfully, it was a different Gareth Jones, one who seemingly has no ties or connection to the band, aside maybe hearing their music in the background of a Tesco. Wouldn't that be wild, though, if the band broke up because their friend and frontman became a serial killer? In the same thread, commenter SleazyKeys1 says that they all used to be buds after meeting at a show, and he heard from Peter that Gareth just wasn't into touring or even performing, and quit to become a carpenter. So that part lines up. I revisited this thread while working on this video and saw there was a new comment from someone claiming to be Gareth's cousin. They confirmed the carpenter story and the happy attribute, and I saw they were decently active on Reddit, so I sent them a message as well. I went through the comments of every video I could find related to the band. I dug through message boards and music publications, though most of them from that era have already turned to digital dust. The sites long forgotten, or if they were still active, their backlog wasn't publicly available. Maybe more people had reported on the band's breakup, maybe there were updates dropped on outdated social media platforms that never got archived. With the constant decay of older digital architecture, we can never know. Citation needed. It felt like being at the grocery store and looking for something you know is there. You've seen it there before, touched it with your hands, but now you just can't find it. You scan the shelves a second time, slower, reading every label your eyes can find. You readjust your approach because the possibility that it isn't there is much smaller than the possibility you're just mistaken. I sent dozens of emails, social media messages, Twitter DMs, and I waited months. Truly, I wanted to say I gave it a fair chance. As of the filming of this video, I have received no fruitful replies. Sometimes, people just disappear. Throughout and following the pandemic, I lost most of my band as well, my friends. My social circle collapsed. It didn't feel like there was one singular incident or event, but once you no longer see people on a regular basis, You'll learn there are a lot of people who you're only friends with because you see them with any sort of regularity. There wasn't a conflict or a confrontation. Someone would send a message, they wouldn't get a reply, and then nobody would decide to follow up. Or they would, and loose plans would be made but never actualized. Things you've carried with you for so long can dissolve, eroded bit by the apathetic hands of time. By the time you remember to check, all you're left with is a memory. I'm not pretending I'm a unique case, either. Everyone I've talked to about this has experienced this loss to some degree. One of my friends, acquaintances, Amanda, more recently replied to a message of mine and explained with her signature care and grace that she simply felt our friendship had run its course. The wick had burned to the bottom and she'd moved on. I couldn't even pretend to be bitter or disappointed by it because I understood, having already felt the same for others. Nothing had happened to us aside from time itself. I think ultimately this is what happened to People in Planes. The band had been together in one form or another for 15 years. Are you the same you were 15 years ago? The first song Guide Dog released was titled I Am the Daddy, and features cover art that looks like a child's drawing. It's not a stretch to suggest that the versions of Gareth, Pete, Ian, Chris, and John that made up People in Planes are laying dormant, matured into versions that are Carpenters, Fathers, or any of the other endless possibilities. Sometimes the only thing that happens is time. I'm still gung-ho for info, but at a point you have to accept that there just isn't more information there. It isn't a trick of the light or a failure on your own part. It isn't something that can be overcome by being more brave or clever. Sometimes, people just disappear. This is the point where the video first ended, and I had resigned myself to never really getting answers. Then I received a reply from someone who claimed to be Gareth's cousin. I told them what I was doing and that I'd love a chance to chat with him if it was at all possible. They replied that he'd always been the shy type, but they'd bring it up with him and give it a shot for me. I passed along my email address, and I waited. I waited another month and a half, checking my email every day, even my spam folder. I revised and finished the script for this video. I installed a disk drive so my computer could copy and upload the long out-of-print full album performance of Beyond the Horizon that was included with the deluxe edition of the album. That's up for viewing now, by the way. I was set to begin recording in the next few days. This is the point where the video ended for the second time. Then someone who claims to be Pete's cousin replied to a YouTube comment of mine and mentioned there was going to be new music soon. I assumed this meant Guide Dog. Maybe we were finally getting the second LP. No. It's People in Planes. I've seen the artwork, he says. It's sitting on my Dropbox. We're just waiting for the Spotify upload. Of course, I'm skeptical. There are too many supposed cousins in this story to really put faith in the words of any of them. On July 14th, 2025, I opened social media to see a post from Pete on the Guide Dog account. I blink repeatedly, and I don't believe my eyes. He mentions a longer post on the band's Facebook page. In that post, Pete writes, "As a gesture of apology to anyone who dug the band and was left feeling abandoned like a stray toddler in a vast supermarket aisle of inferior mid-noughties post-Britpop, I hereby announce the release of the lost third album. 15 years later, now titled CD in a Bottle, releasing on July 21st, 2025. This also meant that I have a hard deadline on when I need to finish this video, and also that the entire sad section of the video is kinda null. The whole video's kinda pointless now, actually. There's something Pete says in his post, though. I'm not sure why 15 years later seems like an appropriate juncture to do this. Perhaps it's a sufficient buffer of time to digest and process the end of a phase of your life, which was so monumentally definitive, not existing anymore. Maybe there is a point to this video after all. Sometimes people just disappear, and sometimes when the time is right, they reappear like a visage in the mist, if only for a moment. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.